Hello, my name is Rauhut, and I have the pleasure of introducing one of my all-time favorite movies, the 1959 MGM production of Ben-Hur. I was 8 years old when Ben-Hur was released and probably first saw it when I was around 10 years old during one of its subsequent re-releases. My late father Ted, who just recently passed away at the age of 90, took my siblings and I to the old Granada Theater with its Spanish motif in South St. Louis to see Ben-Hur. Our dad was a down-to-earth working-class person, but he had a definite appreciation of the arts. He would tell us about how, as a young American soldier in post-World War II Berlin, he would use his free time to attend the opera house in the Russian sector, later to become East Berlin. That was the beginning of my dad's continuing appreciation of music, especially orchestral music, operatic overtures, classical music in general, and last but not least, orchestral film music, which brings us back to Ben-Hur and its masterpiece of a film score by the great Hungarian composer Miklos Rozsa. I cannot imagine Ben-Hur without Rozsa's music. Watching Ben-Hur as an impressionable 10-year-old, I simultaneously instantly elevated my appreciation of both great filmmaking and great orchestral composition. Undoubtedly, Ben-Hur was the signature moment of composer Miklos Rozsa's career. And then there is the movie itself. Ben-Hur is still arguably the very best of the many Bible-oriented films from the 1950s and 60s. In a ploy years ahead of its time, MGM actually agreed to offer director William Wyler points based on the future financial success of the film. Under Wyler's superb direction, Charlton Heston as Judah Ben-Hur turned in an Oscar-winning performance. Heston had somewhat unfairly developed a reputation as perhaps being a bit wooden in his acting roles. However, as Ben-Hur, he hit each and every required emotional note. Heston's was one of 11 Academy Awards the film won, missing a sweep of that year's Oscars by a single category. Of course, director Wyler and composer Rozsa earned Oscars for their contribution to the film. And oh, by the way, there was a chariot race in this movie. Which brings us back to my dad. The reason I was able to comprehend all of the attributes of Ben-Hur was because my dad had instilled in me, even at an early age, an appreciation of all things cultural. It is almost as if the reason my dad chose Ben-Hur to be one of my earliest movie outings was because he knew that it contained many of the key artistic elements which were extremely important to him. After I completed college back in the 1970s, I traveled to Europe. Two of my intended destinations were the U.S. Army Hospital in Berlin, where my dad had served, and the Cinecittà Film Studios near Rome, where Ben-Hur had been filmed. For whatever reasons, even though I headed in that direction on foot down the Appian Way, I never quite made it to Cinecittà. I did, however, visit the hospital where my dad had served, and even walked the streets of East Berlin, where my dad had attended that opera house. I also walked the streets of Rome, just as my dad had done on R&R while stationed in Europe. Composer Miklos Rozsa said that as inspiration for composing his music for Ben-Hur, he would walk the streets of Rome. As you watch this film, just try to envision it without Rozsa's magnificent musical score. Dad, here's to you, from 1959, MGM's production of Ben-Hur.